Hey there, it's Pete with GCI Turf. Hope you're having a great day today. I'm gonna welcome you inside my shop. This is where I do all my mixing and any blending that I might do. And the reason for this video is I just want to show you how, tell you how I used to mix and how I've graduated up to how I mix now. There may be lawn care companies watching that are looking for a more efficient way to mix in bulk, and I'm kind of like a nerd behind all that kind of thing. I absolutely love the plumbing, the valves, the pumps, anything and everything to do with tanks and mixing and you know, setting up things like this that may make you more efficient. I absolutely eat that stuff up. So I've learned a lot over the years. I've failed a lot over the years. And so maybe something in this video will help you if you're a lawn care company, and to be able to not make the same mistakes I made. And maybe something about my setup may give you an idea and to help you be more profitable. So when I was a one-man show, I started off like a lot of one-man shows. I had my little 200-gallon skid sprayer in the back of a pickup truck. I would fill it up with water, with a water hose, a garden hose. Took forever to do that. Fill up 100 gallons, and then I'd start pouring in my mixtures, whether it was urea, ammonium sulfate, or whatever the case it was, whatever I was putting in there. It just took a long time because it was very inefficient. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I was fortunate enough to purchase a big tank, 1,000-gallon upright tank, and it sat outside the shop, and I would pre-mix my nitrogen. Had a pump, and I would pump it into the truck and then get up in the bed of the truck and add my weed controls. Then when I got my first employee for spraying, I had to get an even bigger tank, and ended up getting a 2,500-gallon tank that sat out here, and then I would pre-mix the same way. And when I got my second spray technician, I was like, we just can't do it this way. We have got to find a better way. So the tanks I have in the green shed out here where the trucks fill up at, those tanks have been out here for a pretty good while. We've been using those tanks for probably 6 or 8 years roughly, and the way that happened was I got lucky. I got very fortunate and run across a very good deal. I found two 2,500 cone bottom tanks. You know, they're shaped in a cone at the bottom, so it's full drain. With the tank stands, I think I give $1,500 for both of them, best I can remember. And they were right down the street at a plant. All they did was house water in it. So that was really luck of the draw, right place, right time. When I got those, I didn't need two 2,500-gallon tanks at the time, but it was such a good buy, I could not pass it up, so I bought them. And so they're over there. I've been using them ever since we got them. And whenever you hear me say bulk tanks, those are the two tanks I'm talking about. Those are the tanks where all of this material goes into those tanks. Of course, I fill them up one at a time. Those tanks have their own agitation system set up on them. I plumbed up, and the spray trucks will back in, let it agitate for a little while, hook up, fill up at the end of the day, and then they're ready to roll the next morning. All they do is come in, get their route sheets, clock in, talk with the guys for a second, and they burn the road up. So it's super efficient. We'll go out there in a little bit, and I'll show you after we do what we're going to do in here. This particular tank right here, this is a 285-gallon cone bottom, and this is how I originally started. And you can see my steps right here. Now my steps right here are used for like a catch-all. That's where I'll throw all my junk. But I would climb the steps, and that's where I would dump my bags of material in here, whatever's going in the tank. And it would circulate within itself and stir like a big mixing pot. And then once I would get the concentrate done, I I would pump it out to the big tanks and then flush all this out with water and then finish filling the tanks up with water. That was somewhat fast, kind of fast. I still thought it was a better way somehow. So I picked up 2 inductors. These are called inductor tanks or eductor tanks. I don't know the technical name for it, if it's an eductor or an inductor. I don't know. Either way, what they do is they have a manifold system down here at the bottom that has a straight line manifold that if that valve is open on the top, it sucks the material out as the water's flowing through the line. So your pump's running, the water's pushing through the line, going to the tank. You open a valve and whatever material is in here, it pulls it out into the water stream or into the flow of water and takes it out there to the bulk tank. Then when you're empty, you would open this valve over here on the side and close the one on the top. That would close off access to the tank, but it's more of a bypass, okay? So, and that is basically a venturi at the bottom is what they call those. And that venturi system creates the suction and pulls the material out of that tank. Well, you can bypass that because the venturi is kind of small. It doesn't pump quite the volume when you're pushing water through the venturi. But once you're done with the tank, you close that off, open to the bypass line, and the water scoots right around that venturi, and then you're pumping at full force again. So that's a 115 gallon eductor. And then this one over here, I want to say that's about a 30 gallon eductor. This is where I pump my fertilizers in. My liquid Green County is what we use. I usually run the 2601 or the 2800. Now I've got the totes setting over there. And then I've got anything that pulls off bulk totes. You know, we're at the point now where we buy all our, you know, the materials we use a lot in totes. And it'll come in and I'll set those over there. And I've got a series of valves and things that are hooked up to this electric pump right here. That's a 2-inch banjo electric pump. And so this is basically a large measuring cup is what this really is. So the bulk tanks out there are 2,500 gallons. We spray 2 gallons per 1,000. That's 1,250,000 square feet. You divide it by 43, it's 29 acres. So every time I mix 2,500 gallons, we're mixing enough for 29 acres. So all my math is based off 29. Whatever the product is I'm using, times 29 acres, because that's what the end finished solution is. This one over here, the small one, I use for like pumping my herbicides and my adjuvant. All this is natural adjuvant. I keep my totes of natural adjuvant down there, and we fill them up in some 2.5 gallons and bring them up here just because I ain't got the space up here for it. And then of course some of my herbicides we get in 2.5 gallon jugs. My 3-ways or triplet, or you know, whatever the 3-way herbicide is we're buying, whatever the cheapest one is, typically get that in a tote. Because we use so much of it. So this little small eductor over here has a separate little small electric pump that's hooked straight to the 3-way. So I can pump my 3-way herbicide in here, and again I use that like a measuring cup. Then of course this is my round 1 mix, so I'm running some 2 different post-emergent herbicides, triclopyr and 3-way. And of course I got my Prodiamine for pre-emergent, got my adjuvant, and what I like to do is get everything laid out, get everything I need that's going to go in this mix right here in front of me. Okay, while this is mixing and while things are going, I don't want the distraction of having to get out my phone and figure this out and calculate this and all that. I do that pre-hand. And so everything right here that's going in the tank is here. And then I'll go in and put my material in here, my fertilizer, so to be ready. And then I'll go ahead and put my triplet in here. I think that's Trimec 992 this time. That was just what was the cheapest in a tote. So I'm gonna go ahead and pump all that stuff in here, get it ready. Then I'm gonna go through the valve system and turn the pump on and show you how all this works. And talking about valves, there's a bunch of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 valves right here that I've kind of plumbed in and put in so that, you know, when you're pulling off one tank and you're putting it in another tank, or you're, you know, whatever the case may be, you just open and close a valve and it all works off this one pump. Now this is a gas powered 2-inch pump. And of course it does all the heavy work. It's the pump that pumps all the water and pumps all this out into the bulk tanks. And these 2 electric pumps back here basically get the stuff from the totes over here to my eductors or inductor. Now I've also got these eductors plumbed into my water supply, okay? So why is that important? Well, when I pump a chemical through my pump and I'm done pumping that chemical, whether it's a 3-way or a fertilizer or whatever it might be, I like to flush that pump out with water. So as I'm going through the motions and as I'm doing all this, once you see a material fill up in a certain eductor, you're going to see me run around here, and what I'm doing is I'm opening the water valve and closing the chemical valve, okay? So that way I cut the chemical off to the eductor and I open the water up so that water can flush through my pump. And that way when I'm done, I'm going, you know, home or wherever I'm going, I can rest easy because I don't have chemicals sitting in my pumps. It's nothing but water, and I'm okay with that. I just don't want any type of, I just don't want to take the chance on any type of corrosion. You know, I've had these pumps for a long time, and they have lasted a long time. And I think that's one of the reasons, because I don't keep chemicals sitting in them. They sit chemicals in them a very little short time, just through the transfer process. But after that, it's nothing but water. So I basically come over here. I'm gonna cut on my 3-way right here. I need 7 gallons total for this particular mix, and I have put 10 gallons of water in there, so I need my total to be 17, and then I can cut it off. I typically don't drop straight chemical in there. I always add a little water to it beforehand. It's just something I do. Again, I'll cut the chemical off. Turn some water on and flush that little pump out over there. Now once I get done showing you this, I've actually got a brand new system coming that's going to do away with all this. All this will be gone. I'll have one tank that's going to do everything. Of course, we'll do that in a separate video. Right now, the way this system is and the way I use it now, I can mix 2,500 gallons in roughly an hour. And I think with this new system, I'm gonna be able to cut down that hour time to about 40 minutes. So I know that's just 20 minutes, Pete. Yeah, that 20 minutes I can spend doing something else, making money somewhere else in the business. So time's money, okay? Every little minute counts when you're rocking and rolling in a lawn care business. And of course, you know, this is videoed, so it takes forever as I'm explaining all this, but this is lightning fast. I mean, when I come in here and it's nothing but me, and that's another rule I got. When my guys know, when they see me mixing, they do not have my permission to come up to me, tap me on the shoulder, say, hey, blah, 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 blah. They don't mess with me. I make that very clear. Leave me alone while I'm mixing. When I get done, I'll talk with you, because this is 29 acres worth of turf. That's a lot of customers. And this is you need to be very responsible in this, okay? So I don't want any outside distraction. I don't want nobody talking to me. I don't want nobody messing with me. I don't want to talk about the basketball game. I don't want to talk about nothing. Leave me alone while I'm mixing. When I get done, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, right? So I got the 3-way in there. Now I'm going to open up this valve up here, and we're going to pump the Greene County That's the 2800 I got over there, and pump it up in. Now what I'm like, that tank's almost empty. I got just enough in there for this. So those totes have a flat bottom on it. So you're gonna see me go over there, and basically all I'm doing is getting behind the tote and tilting it up on one side so that all the material goes down to the valve that exits the tank, so I can get every last little bit in here. And then I'm gonna come over here and cut my water source on, right? Remember, we're gonna cut the water source on after we get our needed amount in here. That way it flushes that pump out. So I just cut the valve on to the tote. See it filling up, fills up super fast. I mean, it's really quick. We'll pump 100 gallons in there in a matter of 10 or 15 seconds. So I'm gonna run over here and hold that tote up like I was telling you, so I can get every last little bit in here. Now I'm going to open up the suction valve on my main pump here. That's going to pull water in, and of course I'll open the valve to discharge it, and then I've got to open both of these valves up on the adductors. I only pull off one adducter at a time because I found that this particular pump just don't create enough pressure, even though it creates a boatload of pressure, boatload of volume. It's not enough to drain both of them fast. It's actually faster to drain one, cut it off, then drain the second one, cut it off. If you got them both open at the same time, it takes longer to do that. The way I have my water storage tank is I have two 3,000 gallon tanks out there that are hooked up straight to my well from the top, and they have an automatic shut-off valve on them. So my well fills those tanks up. All right, when the tanks get full, the valve closes and cuts the water off. So I always have 6,000 gallons of water. It's always at my disposal to do my mixing. And this bottom suction line here pulls off of those two water tanks out there. There's a second suction line over here that goes over to another tote I have over here. And this particular tote, this one goes to that second suction line. This is for like my dry inputs, like if I'm gonna melt down urea, ammonium sulfate, whatever it may be. This is how I do that. I've got a little hole cut out here that I dump the material in, and then I've got a even mix tote mixer. You can see that really stirs that material up. So this will be my second nitrogen source that's going in here. That's ammonium sulfate right now. And then I just open the valves up to this tank and open up my second valve over there at my main pump. It'll pull right off of this tank. All right, so now we'll fire everything up, get this thing rocking and rolling, and I won't be stopping and talking. I've already kind of told you everything. But basically, I'll pull this down, then open a few different valves, pull that off of that other tote I got over there. And then during the whole process, I'll be taking the weed controls out of this adductor and adding things to this adductor. So you'll kind of be watching me do all that as I do it. concentrate out in the tank, the bulk tank. Now, let's just say, for instance, if I'm running 2 different liquids and I'm using a lot of them, as the thing's pumping, I pull one down, and you notice me get up on here with a water hose. I always rinse the tank out, the adductor out once it's done educting, whatever it's called. Rinse it out, and then I would close the valve off, let the bypass be doing its thing, and then I would actually go over and open the next tote of whatever it may be. Say it's calcium. I spray a lot of calcium, and I would open that, let that fill up all while this is running. Now you got to remember, if you do that, you can't open the adductor valve. Okay, you can't do that, because if I'm putting 100 gallons in here and the system is running and I have the adductor valve open, it's constantly pulling from the tank. So you don't know if you're getting a true 100 gallons or not. So you have to cut the adductor valve off, open the bypass valve, fill it up to whatever amount you need, then cut that pump off, and then go back and swap the valves again so that it starts pulling off the tank. So I do that all the time, just while the system's running. Everything from in here that I need is in the bulk tank now. I double check, triple check all my valves to make sure everything's cut off. Off, and then I'll go over here and check my totes as well to make sure everything's off. I mean, it's Friday. I'm gonna go home for the weekend. I don't want nothing leaking and slipping through. You know what I'm saying? So I always double check and triple check those valves to make sure they're closed. Let's go out here to the bulk tank and I'll show you that. So when you come out here, I've got the second pump set up. This is where the truck's back in at the end of the day. And we'll use this pump to fill up their spray tanks. And these first 2 tanks are the bulk tanks, tank number 1, tank number 2. Tank number 2 is the one I was just pumping into. So the way I got this plumbed is I can operate 1 tank at a time. You typically don't use both tanks at the same time. They'll work off 1 tank, drain it, then hook up to the second tank, drain it, and by then I've filled up the other one for them. Typically we'll go through 5,000 gallons in a week pretty easy. Sometimes 7,500 gallons in a week, depending on what time of the year it is. But I'm up to 1,500 gallons out there, so it's actually quicker for me once I get all my material pumped out here to come out here and use this one. This particular pump is hooked up to the water as well. That way I can pull off the water tank, and it's a closer span. It's closer to the water tank, so it fills it up quicker. So I'm gonna fire this up, and I'll just sit out here and let the thing finish filling up. Once it fills up completely, then I'll cut the water supply off, and then I'll turn the suction on to that particular tank, and it will pull from the tank and put it back in the same tank. I've got an agitation manifold I made that goes in the side and the bottom. And so it keeps it stirred up real good, and I'll let that agitate for a good solid hour while I go do something else. And then come up here, cut it off, cut all the valves off. And when the guys come in the afternoons, the first thing they do when they get here is open the valves up to the right tank, turn the pump on, and let it agitate. They'll let it agitate for a good 5 to 10 minutes while they're doing route sheet work and all that kind of thing. And then they can fill up their trucks. That way it gets a good stirring before they fill them up. So I think that's about it with all this. This is actually another eductor in case we're, need to fill the truck up with water and just put something special or different or whatever, and we don't want to mix up a whole batch full. We can just put the stuff right in here and it pumps it right into the truck. But that's kind of my way of mixing now. I've been doing it this way for a long time. That new mixer is on the way. I cannot wait to get it. I'll get all that set up and do a second video with that mixing system alone, and I think you'll see how much easier it is. This is pretty simple, pretty quick, efficient, but the new system I'm getting is gonna make it even more efficient and easier on me. So there you go. As always, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch. I'll check you later.